The last text message Carla Mendes ever sent from her own phone read, "Going next door to help Greg with his dog, be back in 10." And she typed it casually, without urgency, without fear, because Greg Alton had been her neighbor on Sycamore Lane in Plano, Texas for almost 3 years, a quiet man in his mid-50s who kept his lawn trimmed, who waved from his driveway on Sunday mornings, who once returned a package that had been mistakenly delivered to his porch, and who had never, not once, given Carla any reason to feel afraid. It was a Saturday afternoon in late October, the kind of cool, gray day when the neighborhood smelled like cedar mulch and someone 2 streets over was burning leaves, and Carla, a 28-year-old dental hygienist, had been folding laundry in her living room when Greg appeared at her front door, slightly out of breath, saying his golden retriever had gotten into something under the house and he needed help pulling her out because his back had been giving him trouble. Carla didn't hesitate. She slipped on her shoes, sent the text to her boyfriend Marcus, and followed Greg across the 30 feet of shared lawn between their homes. She'd been inside Greg's house twice before, once to drop off a plate of cookies during the holidays, once to borrow a wrench, and it had always struck her as unusually clean, almost unlived in, the kind of house that looked more like a catalog photograph than a place where someone actually ate breakfast and watched television. Greg led her through the kitchen, past the hallway and toward a door she hadn't noticed before, a white door that matched the walls so closely it nearly disappeared. "She's down in the utility room," Greg said, opening the door to reveal a set of wooden stairs descending into a basement. "I can hear her whining, but I can't bend down far enough to reach her." Carla started down the stairs. The air changed immediately, cooler, damper, thicker, and the light from the kitchen above faded as she reached the bottom step. The basement was large, larger than she expected, with concrete walls and a bare fluorescent tube buzzing overhead. She saw the utility room to her left, a washer and dryer, shelving units lined with labeled bins. But no dog, no whining, no sound at all except the fluorescent hum and the faint creak of Greg's footsteps on the stairs behind her. "Greg?" Carla said, turning around. "Where is she?" And that's when she saw his face, really sighed, for the first time. The friendly neighbor expression was gone, replaced by something flat, something patient, something that had been hiding behind every wave, every smile, every returned package for 3 years. He was standing at the base of the stairs holding a length of thin nylon rope in both hands, and the basement door above them was already closed. Carla's mind didn't process it as fear at first. It processed it as confusion, a momentary glitch in reality, the way your brain stutters when something so fundamentally wrong happens in a space you associate with safety. Her mouth opened, but no words came out, just a thin exhalation that fogged in the cool basement air. 3 years. 3 years of casual waves and borrowed wrenches and cookies at Christmas, and the entire time, this man, this careful, patient, meticulous man, had been constructing something beneath his house that was designed for one purpose, and that purpose was standing at the bottom of his stairs in running shoes and a ponytail, trying to understand why the world had just tilted 45 degrees on its axis. "Greg, what are you—" "Sit down, Carla." His voice was calm. Not angry, not excited, calm. The voice of a man who had planned this moment carefully, who had rehearsed the words, who was operating on a script he had written long before she'd ever moved to Sycamore Lane. It was the calm that terrified her most, not shouting, not threatening, just a quiet instruction delivered with the confidence of someone who had already decided how this evening would end. Carla did not sit down. Instead, she took one step backward, and her heel caught the edge of a floor drain, and she stumbled but did not fall, and in that half-second of imbalance, Greg moved forward with a speed that contradicted everything she knew about his bad back and closed the distance between them. She screamed. It came out louder than she expected, a raw, tearing sound that bounced off the concrete walls, and she threw a right hand out, fingers clawing across his face, catching the corner of his eye, and Greg flinched, just enough, just long enough for Carla to twist sideways and put the washer between them. Her heart was slamming against her ribs, her breath was coming in shallow, ragged gulps. The basement had no windows. The stairs were behind Greg. The only other thing in the room was a door on the far wall, a heavy steel door with a padlock hanging open from the hasp, and Carla understood with a sickening clarity that almost made her knees give out that the door didn't lead to an exit. It led to wherever Greg had intended to take her. "You don't need to make this difficult," Greg said, pressing his hand against the scratch on his face. Blood seeped between his fingers. "I've thought about this for a long time. I just want to talk." But Carla wasn't listening to his words anymore. She was listening to the house, to the structure around her, mapping it in her mind like a trapped animal maps its cage. The basement ceiling had exposed ductwork, copper pipes, junction boxes. The shelving units were freestanding metal, heavy, bolted together, but not anchored to the wall. And on the second shelf from the bottom, half hidden behind a bin labeled Holiday, she could see the yellow handle of a claw hammer. She didn't look at it directly. She kept her eyes on Greg, kept the washer between them, and let her left hand drift downward, slowly, casually, as if she were bracing herself against the shelf for support. Her fingers brushed the cold metal of the shelf, then the cardboard edge of the bin, and then, there, the rubberized handle of the hammer, solid and real and heavy with promise. "Greg, listen to me," she said, and her voice surprised her.
It was steady, controlled, almost conversational. The voice of a woman negotiating across a kitchen table rather than fighting for her life in a concrete room with no windows and one exit that was blocked by a man holding a rope. "Marcus knows I'm here. I texted him. He's expecting me back in 10 minutes. Something shifted in Greg's expression. A flicker of calculation, a brief tightening around the jaw. He hadn't expected that. He hadn't factored in the text message, the boyfriend, the 10-minute window that was already half spent. "He won't come over here," Greg said, but there was a crack in his certainty now, a hairline fracture in the composure that Carla drove into like a wedge. "He will," she said. "He always does. He's protective like that. And when he gets here and I'm not home, the first place he's going to check is your house. And the first thing he's going to hear is me screaming. And the next thing that happens is the police are here in 4 minutes because the station is right off Jupiter Road." She was buying time. Every word was a second. Every second was a step closer to Marcus realizing something was wrong, to someone noticing, to anything changing. Greg stared at her, and she could see the machinery working behind his eyes, recalculating, adjusting. The plan he'd spent months, maybe years building, now warping under the weight of a single text message. He took a step to the right, circling the washer, and Carla mirrored him, keeping the distance equal, her left hand now resting on the shelf beside the bin labeled Holiday. "Come on, Carla, we both know he's not—" She grabbed the hammer. It was heavier than she expected, solid steel with a rubber grip, and she swung it in a wide arc that forced Greg to jump backward. The claw end whistled past his chest, missing by inches, and the momentum carried Carla forward, off balance, but she recovered and brought the hammer up in front of her body, gripping it with both hands, the claw end facing outward like a weapon from another century. "Stay back," she said. And now her voice was shaking. Now the adrenaline was flooding through her system so hard that her vision was pulsing with her heartbeat, but she held her ground. Greg looked at the hammer. He looked at Carla, and for the first time, she saw something she recognized in his eyes. Not anger, not frustration, but the quiet, sulking disappointment of a man who had been denied something he believed he was owed. He took one step back, then another. Carla moved toward the stairs, keeping the hammer raised, keeping her eyes on Greg, and she climbed backward, one step at a time, her free hand gripping the wooden railings so hard the splinters bit into her palm. Greg didn't follow. He stood at the base of the stairs, watching her ascend, and the last thing she saw before she burst through the basement door into the kitchen was his face, calm, empty, already retreating behind the mask of the friendly neighbor, as if nothing had happened, as if nothing had ever been planned, as if the rope now lying on the concrete floor and the padlocked room behind the steel door were just parts of a house that nobody needed to see. Carla ran.
She didn't stop at Greg's front door. She ran across the lawn, across her own driveway, through her front door, and locked every lock in the house before she called 911 with hands that shook so violently she had to dial twice. Marcus arrived 11 minutes later, and the police arrived 3 minutes after that. When deputies entered Greg Alton's basement, they found the room behind the steel door. It was 12 feet by 10 feet, soundproofed with acoustic foam panels screwed into every wall, the ceiling, and the floor. The foam was gray, industrial grade, the kind used in recording studios, and it had been installed with professional precision. No gaps, no seams, every panel cut to fit flush against the one beside it. Inside the room was a mattress wrapped in plastic sheeting, a bucket, a case of bottled water, 2 boxes of protein bars, a bag of zip ties in 3 different sizes, a roll of duct tape, and a video camera mounted on a tripod in the corner, its red power lights still blinking. The hard drive connected to the camera contained no recordings. It was empty, formatted, waiting. There was also a calendar pinned to the wall behind the door, and on the date corresponding to that Saturday, the day Carla had walked into his basement, Greg had written a single word in neat blue ink: today. Greg Alton was arrested without incident. He was sitting on his front porch when the deputies arrived, drinking iced tea as if it were any other Saturday afternoon in Plano. He was charged with attempted kidnapping, unlawful restraint, and possession of implements of confinement. A subsequent investigation revealed that Greg had moved 4 times in the past 12 years, each time to a different state, each time to a house with a basement. No prior victims were identified, but investigators noted that in 2 of his previous cities, Terre Haute, Indiana, and Jonesboro, Arkansas, women living alone within a 2-block radius of his former addresses had filed police reports describing a neighbor who was unusually friendly, unusually attentive, unusually interested in their routines. Carla Mendes moved out of Sycamore Lane 3 weeks later. She and Marcus bought a house in McKinney, a single-story home with no basement, on a street where she didn't know any of the neighbors, and for the first time in her life, she was perfectly fine with that, because the most dangerous man she'd ever met hadn't been hiding in the dark, hadn't been lurking in an alley, hadn't been a stranger at all. He'd been waving from his driveway every Sunday morning, smiling, waiting, patient as a spider, sitting 3 years in the center of a web that was always, always meant for her.